All right. So Colonel Phil Waldran is here. Please, when you're ready, Mr. Waldron, can you explain why you're here, what your background is, your expertise, and when you're ready, please begin.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to look at some statistical analysis. I worked with a team that's been looking at the voter manipulation, election manipulation since November of 18. I started looking at this issue in August of this year, doing a deep dive on several key areas with some of the electronic voting machine companies. And we started looking at some of the vulnerabilities that have been mentioned on the floor of the U.S. Congress and Senate that have been widely published in, publicly available documentaries. So we began looking at the problems immediately after the election, doing analysis on anomalies in the data, and then we also did some forensics on a couple of locations up in northern Michigan in Central Lake Township and Antrim, and then talked to folks at Star Township. And all this information is in affidavits as well, sworn affidavits. In a nutshell, we began to look at anomalies in the voting systems. We looked at publicly available information from your state. First thing we noticed was that there are 643 precincts in Michigan with a voter turnout above 80%, which is a little bit anomalous. There were 21 precincts that were over 90%, 10 precincts that had exactly 100% voter turnout, and 6 precincts that were over 120% voter turnout. So as we began to look at that, my team focused on anomalous patterns where votes were entered in an amount of time that was physically impossible for the tabulation machines to process the votes. And so we found four spikes in the analysis that exceeded the tabulation machine's ability to process that amount of votes in a timeline, and that was in Kent County, Macomb County, Oakland County, and Wayne County. And again, this data was from Dominion and published, in open source. So those anomalies pointed us to a couple other things that some of your previous witnesses who I just heard tonight, but the incremental absentee vote punches there was a big move from 652 on the morning of the 4th. 16,000 absentee votes were processed. Between 6:52 and 7:49 local time on the 4th, an additional 213,429 absentee votes were processed, and this aligns with some of the observations that the previous witnesses made. And then at 11:15 that same morning, in a time period of about 8 minutes, which correlates to the time our previous witness, Ms. Jessie, testified, there was 56,098 votes processed in an 8-minute period. Now, each one of these machines can process about 20,000 votes an hour, so you can do the math yourself, or it's in our affidavit. So the anomalous activity led us to believe that just looking at the data, that there were red flags for fraudulent activities, and we have subsequently asked for our team or someone else to do the forensic analysis to determine exactly what happened with those votes and those spikes that could not have been mathematically processed with the amount of machines that were present in the facilities. Our team also went up to northern Michigan to the Central Lake Township. We do have an affidavit from Miss Judith Koslowski while we were up there. She had a tabulation or retabulation, and showed a pretty significant amount of change in the votes. We published an affidavit with those key elements that showed differences in the data runs and the tapes, and I believe I've provided that to you as well. And then a declaration by Robert Marsh, the Star Township supervisor, a couple of the excerpts. When he said, upon examining the tape at the close of the polls, I could see that President Trump had clearly won the presidential race in Star Township. He said, I believe the numbers were 462 for President Trump, with Joe Biden receiving 161 votes. Normally, when a candidate has such a large lead, it's safe to assume who the winner would be. Early the next morning, my wife received a phone call from a friend asking what happened to Antrim County going blue, meaning Democrat. At 7:36 that morning, I was texting our stats representative, Tristan Cole, to find out if those were the actual results. At the time, Tristan advised me that the numbers were not right, that Antrim County was reporting 462 votes had been credited to Joe Biden, and President Trump had only received 10 votes. So we saw numerous examples of numbers moving, numbers being flipped and switched. As you realize, the Antrim County is where the 6,000 vote glitch occurred. And if you look at the numerous references in the guidelines for elections in the Help America Vote Act, the Federal Election Commission Voting System Standards, and the Federal Information Security Modernization Act, an error rate is permissible for 1 out of 125,000 ballots. And if you look at just what happened in Antrim County, the error rate was 8.3, so it puts it about 750 times the allowable limit. And according to the regulations, that should have disqualified. They went later and changed that from a glitch to a clerical error, which, they kind of changed up the reporting on that a little bit. In a nutshell, we found several other things using open source data. There is a gentleman named Eric Lutzen, and he has matched up a list. He started looking at voters above the age of 80 that were registered for voting and did vote in Michigan, and 17,327 Michigan voters also had a corresponding obituary. And I didn't print that whole thing out, but I can give you that website for the tabular data, and it's about 350 pages or so. So in the essence of time, I'll close it out. We'd be happy to chat if there's any other specific information that I can provide to you about our findings.
Sure. Thank you. So I just want to understand, I mean, I think was there something you were going to add?
I was going to ask him to spend a few minutes on Dominion.
Okay.
Company. He knows quite a bit about it, and he's one of the few people that has examined their machine.
Okay. Well, let me ask my question, and then we'll ask you about Dominion too. But I just want to understand. So we had the Antrim County Clerk in here, and we had her testify earlier this, in the last few weeks. And one thing that I found from her testimony is that she seemed not to be very well trained. Her clerks locally did not seem to be very well trained, and they basically they didn't seem to know how to work their machines. They didn't seem to run the proper tests from the testimony that would have discovered the mistakes. And then when the election happened, and we saw this 6,000 votes that went for Biden, and Congressman Bergman found that and reported it, and then they looked at it, and they said, "What happened here?" And she said it was a technical glitch or whatever she said. Well, that came from her office, and now, a few days later or whatever it was, she alleged it was human error. And that's what she said later. So, based on that, I mean, what we have to go on in this committee is the testimony we've heard. And based on what she said, that looked like it was human error. If we go off what she said that the tape matched. She said this would have been discovered in a canvas because the tape matched. So I just wanted to hear if you have knowledge of this, if there's anything you can speak to on this, because that was the conclusion that I had come to after hearing her, that this was limited to Antrim County. And again, like I said, Dominion won't come in, so I don't know more. But I know in Antrim County, it sure seemed like the clerk there didn't know what she was doing, and that caused a lot of this problem and confusion. So can you tell us more about what you've learned and address that for me? Thank you.
Yes, our forensics team went up to the Central Lake Township.
And can you clarify, is that in Antrim County?
It is in Antrim County.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
And this was included in the forensics report on Central Lake Township in Antrim, Michigan. The report date was November 29th, 2020. And on the 27th, the ASOG forensics team, which is Allied Security Operations Group forensics team, visited the Central Lake Township in Michigan. The clerk presented to two separate paper totals tape from the tabulator with the identification number ID2, tabulator ID2. One was dated poll opened November 3rd, 06/38/48, which was roll 1. And the second dated poll opened November 6, 2020, 09/21/58, which was roll 2. She was asked, Ms. Kozlowski.
I ask you, what does that mean? So was one, what were the two dates?
The
There were
actual
two
poll
tapes?
date, November 3rd, and then the second on November 6th.
And there were two tapes.
Two tapes. They ran the ballots and printed roll 2. She was asked by the county clerk's office to come in and do a retabulation on the 6th.
Okay, so there was a one run through and a ticket printed, and we went through that with the clerk. There's a ticket that shows the result.
Correct.
On
And then a
November 3rd on
retabulation.
Election Day.
Then a retabulation.
On November 6th.
Correct.
And you're saying that was ordered by the county clerk?
By the county clerk's office. She said she was notified by Connie Wing of the county clerk's office and asked to bring the tabulator and ballots to the county clerk's office for retabulation.
Okay, so what did you find when you looked at that?
They ran, roll 1 had a total of 1,494 total votes. Roll 2 had 1,491 votes. They had three less ballots because 3 ballots were damaged in the retabulation process. So Ms. Kozlowski said that she and her assistant manually refilled out the 3 ballots, curing them and ran them through a ballot counting system. But the final numbers did not reflect the inclusion of those 3 ballots. So the shifts in the votes from tape 1 or roll 1 to roll 2, on election night, President Trump received 566 votes. Vice President Biden received 340 votes. On the recount, Trump had 1 less vote at 565, while Biden was unchanged at 340. The other areas on the down ballot where we saw a lot of different number shift was a proposed ordinance to authorize marijuana and then a retail establishment within the village of Central Lake. So those were the ballot proposal to authorize marijuana went from not passing to passing by shifting votes and removing when the recount, the 3 ballots were not counted, the proposal passed with 1 vote. And then for school board, even though this was a ranked voting, and the top 2 apparently were going to be elected, there was a significant number of votes. There were 742 votes added to this total. Between the election, there were 1,068 votes, and then on the recount, there were 1,810 votes that showed 112 write-in candidates. The school board member shifts were significant, as well as there was a change in the state proposal 20-1. There was a change in those numbers. So the way that works, the township clerk was given 2 compact flashcards as a security key. One of the compact flashcards is known as the ISD card, so it goes into the administrator slot, and then the CF card goes into the poll worker slot. And then there's a security key that's used on the security key. So Ms. Kozlowski was given the cards that were in proper retention and reran the tapes. The difference in the administrator card, which is the software load, the poll numbers were pretty much the same, but votes in between those 2 runs shifted. So there's a discrepancy in the forensics.
How did you find that?
The discrepancies?
Huh?
In the actual tapes, in the
Is that
tabulation
one
tapes.
machine?
One machine, yes.
It made that many mistakes?
They made a lot of mistakes.
Did it do anything right?
It kept pretty close to the other votes, but it did not meet with the standards of the
pretty
Federal
typical of a
Federal
Dominion
Election
machine?
Commission. We have not examined forensically in this election more than this machine. It's pretty much been blocked.
So,
It's definitely is far outside the limits of the 1 in 250,000 vote error rate.
so
Based
just
on that, would you want to examine more machines?
Yes, sir.
just to understand, so what the clerk has said is that, and I heard you say there were 2 tapes, and then you kind of went through how there were some differences on the 2 tapes. What the clerk has said is that there was a problem basically with the way the count was displayed on the website, but that when they looked at the tape, that the count was accurate, and that would have been caught in the canvas. Do you agree with that, or do you disagree?
So the votes were canvassed on election night according to Ms. Kozlowski and approved, and for some reason that she did not know, she was asked to come back in to redo. She says on this is the declaration of Ms. Judith L. Kozlowski, and it's signed and dated, and this declaration is under penalty of perjury. She said on November 5th, I was contacted by, on election night, we close the polls after the absentee ballots have entered into the tabulator. We take our ISD cards to the machine and take them, the security fob, and the results of the electronic poll book to the county clerk's office that night. She said, I received my ISD cards when I went to the county building and received my precinct kits from Connie Wing prior to the election and never received nor was made aware of an update, as I did not need any updates. On Thursday, November 5th, I was contacted by Connie Wing of the county clerk's office and asked that I bring my tabulated locked ballot container and tabulator to the clerk's office for retabulation. Because of time constraints, a retabulation did not occur, and I was asked to return on Friday, November 6th. I was given the ISD cards and security fob. We set it up, and the retabulation began at 9. We finished at 8:55. The retabulation was done in the presence of the Antrim County Board of Canvassers and the Antrim County Sheriff, along with the Deputy Clerk, Patricia Marshall. At the completion of the retabulation, all the voted ballots from November 3rd, I asked that the Board of Canvassers was ready for me to close the poll and run the tally tape, which I did. It was at this time that I noticed a number of votes cast on November 6th had changed from the tape on November 3rd. So I stated to the board that the numbers had changed. The board did not respond to my comment. To this date, I still do not know why Central Lake Township was the only township that had to retabulate. Other township clerks asked me why I had to do this, and I could not explain. And that is item number 5 on her declaration. So that's what I know.
Okay, thank you. Well, next we'll go to Representative Steve Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So
Yes, sir.
So in your analysis, you talked about how the number of votes coming in were at a rate higher than they could actually be processed through the machines.
Correct.
And this is after the polls have closed?
Yes, sir. This is,
So forgive my ignorance here, but the way I understood it is that the numbers don't get counted one by one. A precinct will count all their ballots, and then they submit all their numbers. So the fact that there's a lot of numbers coming in within a short period of time isn't because a bunch of ballots all of a sudden get counted. It's because machines from all over the state that had been counting for hours all day long finally decided to upload their information. I mean, am I missing something here? Like, that's how I always understood how these things work is, I live in the city of Wayland. I vote. They, I think 7 to 8 o'clock, they shut down, they do everything, and then they upload it. They didn't all of a sudden run through 1,000 votes. No, those 1,000 votes were counted over hours and hours.
So the timeline of the reporting, which is it's got timestamps on the data files, the data logs, where it's uploaded. Those show 4 spikes that totaled 384,000 votes in a combined interval of 2 hours and 38 minutes. So those.
Why is that not possible? Because they're not running 300,000 ballots through that quickly. That's just
Correct.
machines
Yeah.
from around the entire state. So if you have the city of Detroit with 250,000, obviously Detroit came in later, but hypothetically, there's big cities in Michigan, big precincts, and they start filing at the same time. It seems to me like that's actually quite logical that you would have a lot coming in a short amount of time. As someone who's a political candidate, as I watch the numbers come in, usually there's nothing, and then all of a sudden you get a bunch of spikes. Oh, we got City of Kentwood. Oh, we got Gaines Township. You start seeing things come in. I don't think that's proof of fraud or anything. I think that's just how it works. Am I missing something here?
So if you look at the total number of machines, and the machines can count about 2,000 ballots per hour per machine, the calculation sum would yield about 100,000 ballots is the maximum number of ballots that could be processed.
But they're not
Tabulation.
processing that ballot in that
Machines.
time frame. They've been processing those ballots all day long. They are just uploading the total number at that time.
Well, they're actually uploaded at various intervals along that timeline throughout the day.
Say that again?
They're uploading those results at various, across that timeline throughout the day.
I don't think that's accurate. I don't think they upload results until after everything is done. I mean, that's actually a pretty big deal. With Republican, at least, we actually have been very clear of you don't start reporting the ballots until everything is done, everything is closed out. So I don't think that's actually accurate. If that is accurate, that's something we need to look into, that they're continuously uploading the numbers throughout the day, but that's not my understanding.
Yeah, so if you look the Edison data provided to the New York Times, it shows pretty much of a continual upload throughout the day. And then there are spikes that occur at specific times that are bump loads, but I can provide this to you.
The question is, did you give us that? As I know you gave us a packet, that's not in it.
It should be in the affidavit that
Okay,
I
we
provided
don't have
to you,
that.
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
Did he answer your question? Okay. Next, we'll go to Representative Camilleri.
I'll pass, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Representative LaFave.
Yeah, thank you, Representative Johnson. If you and I agree on the thing you were just talking about, that could be a real problem if something is different. But Colonel, I've got, tell me if I'm wrong, 10 precincts in the state you believe voted at 100% approximately?
That was according to data from the state, yes, sir.
6 precincts at above 100%?
Correct.
Add those up for me. About how many votes is that?
We just looked at voter turnout, so I didn't add up the votes from those precincts.
Think you could send me an email? Let me know the total number of votes there.
Why don't you, we'll have him send it to the committee. We'll work with that. We can send it to the clerk. Continue, Rep. LaFave. Did he answer your question?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Okay. All right, and I wanted to, we had talked about Dominion. Was there something that you wanted to discuss about Dominion? I understand that perhaps you've examined these machines. I know for us, we can't get Dominion to come in and testify, and one thing that I would like to do is examine the machines to understand, because my belief is that if we could look at the machines, if we could examine their software, we'd have a good idea then of whether all this stuff is true or not. But the problem that I have is that because Dominion won't come in, they won't testify. They won't provide us machines. They won't do these things. It's hard for me to wrap around this Dominion theory because basically we're going off of what people are saying and we're hearing nothing from Dominion. So, as we're investigating, I think that would be very valuable to us. But from what I understand, you've looked at this. So what can you tell us about the Dominion voting system?
We began looking at these companies, as I mentioned, the team that we joined that had begun studying this back in 2018 after the Kentucky governor's race, and then several races in Texas with the ES&S machines. We really started looking at the lineage of these companies and the code to the software, and they really seem all go back to Smartmatic, or SGO Smartmatic. They do have licensure agreements between Smartmatic and Dominion, between Smartmatic and ES&S, which is another major voting machine. And really the core of these voting systems are rife with vulnerabilities. I was an information warfare officer, so I looked at ways to penetrate, defeat, and corrupt other systems, whether it was through electronic warfare, through other means. And these systems are highly vulnerable to penetrations at multiple levels throughout the system. The easiest way and the most discreet way is USB drives. In classified systems in the military, I worked with both secret and top secret and other special access programs. All those machines had the USB drives deactivated. You could not use them just because of the critical vulnerability. These machines all work off of USB drives, and so we've found in dealing with Pennsylvania and in Arizona, there is no control, there is no chain of custody in the USB drives. Workers can stick a USB drive in. We could stick a USB drive into any of your laptops. You don't know what's on there, and you can change software, you can change operating systems with the USB drives. And the core of these systems is manipulability. This is the operator's manual and the implementation statement for 5.1. One of the myths that has been propagated even by the director of CISA at Homeland Security, which is the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, is that, well, these machines are not connected to the internet. In the operator's manual, there's a whole page of references that show you how and when to connect and what selectors to connect to servers and to routers, so it is connected to the internet. That's how you get election night reporting. That's through another company called Clarity Elections. They provide early reporting to the news media. Matter of fact, as I was looking at one of the counties where I saw the spike, I believe it's Oakland County. I was going to the Oakland County, the 2020 elections results, and I clicked on the elections results, and a warning flag pops up to the right side, and it says, "You're leaving this domain. You are going to clarityelections./mi." So the information for the counties in your state isn't really maintained or owned by your county and state, but rather a corporation that's owned by SOE Software and Cytl, SCYTL, which is a Madrid, Spain corporation. It went bankrupt in May of 2020 and was purchased by another UK registered company. So we've recently found, and we're digging further, that there was a $400 million financial transaction to Dominion Voting Systems in October, 1 month before our election. We're digging into that, but we know through some of the leaked information from the Panama banking system that SGO, Smartmatic, and Dominion both share a physical address in a small building in Barbados as registered headquarters. So these companies share licensing agreements. They share a common core of their DNA is the code, is the software. And I'll be happy to provide you an electronic copy of this operator's manual. And when you read through here, and you can see all the options that administrators and operators of these systems have, like some of the previous witnesses mentioned, they can assign, they can vote blank ballots, they can delete data, they can they can mass adjudicate write-in ballots. And so it is designed to be inaccurate. It's designed to, if an individual or a team of individuals had a malign purpose, this would be the tool that I would want to use.
Can I ask you,
Colonel, tell them the history of Smartmatic. When did it start? Where did it start?
Smartmatic.
And what was it developed to do?
Smartmatic was designed, developed in Venezuela. Hugo Chavez was the president, and basically he invested, I believe, 28% of the money to fund Smartmatic to control the Venezuelan elections. I personally debriefed the son of a Cuban intelligence officer who was at dinner with two of Hugo Chavez's relatives when Maduro's election was in question due to the populist uprising in Venezuela. And they told him, the son of the Cuban intelligence officer, don't worry, it's guaranteed. Our father invested the money to start SGO. So,
And have they been involved in numerous elections that have been questioned as to the integrity of the election?
Numerous elections in Central America, the South Pacific, and Europe.
And are they allied with Dominion?
Well, at least in Barbados, with a shared.
Does
corporate
Dominion
office.
use their software?
The Dominion software, so that where the merger of the DNA comes, is there's the licensing agreement, and as a result of a lawsuit, Sequoia Voting Systems was sold off of SGO and purchased by
Who owned Sequoia?
SGO Smartmatic. Owned Sequoia. They sold Sequoia Voting Systems to Dominion Voting Systems, and they also purchased Premier as a result of an antitrust. So all of the DNA and the code and the software in these machines are very, very similar. As a matter of fact, there's testimony on the House floor as late as July of 2019 that decries that we're actually still using this equipment that is full of holes. My team is doing analysis all over the country right now. We can't meet the demand because there's so much. But there was about a 40-page document with the vulnerabilities that was pulled down off of Stacey Abrams' website about these systems. Across the party, across the aisle, there have been Democratic senators, Senator Klobuchar, Senator Warren, as well as Republicans. So this is an American issue. This is a national security issue. Our voting systems are defined as national critical infrastructure, just as critical as nuclear power plants, just as critical as petrochemical, steel, and ports.
What's fractional voting?
Can I ask? I'm going to ask a question here. So I just wanted to understand why. So when we hear these things, they say in the press, they say this has been debunked, right? Every time I read about this, they say this has been debunked.
It's fake news.
Please, we don't want to have to remove anybody, and I'm serious. We're not supposed to yell out here, but let me ask you. When you hear that, why do you think they're saying that? Because we do hearings like this. For many people, this is the only time they hear testimony like yours. But why are they saying that it's debunked? Do you have a theory on that?
I have a theory in life, and it's about people and personal behavior. It's either a variable of competence or a variable of commitment. In this case, they would be either incompetent. They haven't done the research like I and my team have done. They haven't looked to the user's manual of these systems. They haven't rationally thought that, okay, these election votes are updated in real time. How does that happen? You know, nobody's getting in from a car from in Lansing, Michigan, and driving it to New York to be uploaded at the Rockefeller Center. So these are connected. And actually in the operating diagrams of the systems, the high-level block diagram, this is Democracy Suite. It shows Democracy Suite, EMS application and document management server, the Democracy Suite database server, the data center. This is data. This is electronic data. Your ballots are put into the machine, and they're turned from a paper ballot to a ballot image. And the ballot image is data, and the data can be manipulated with something as easy as a USB drive.
Thank you. Representative Riley.
Thank you. So I'm just trying to figure out, would not a recount detect if you had a software manipulate the votes? I mean, wouldn't that be easily seen?
So what we observed, and your other witnesses tonight observed, is a injection of paper ballots. Whether those are accurate or not, you could recount the manual ballots, but unless you did a forensic audit of the ballot itself, you wouldn't be able to tell if the ballot was fraudulent or pre-printed. We have technology to be able to do that. A gentleman that I'm associated with in Texas, his name is Jovan Pulitzer. He invented the QR code and scanner and scanning capability, owns a patent on all that. He's devised a way to determine fake ballots or ballots who were pre-printed. So
Yeah, but isn't that another issue altogether? I'm just talking about
this is a multifaceted issue, but yes, the forensics data, if you have access to the software code that was driving the algorithms in these machines, and I say algorithm because the data that's the raw feed of the data is reported in decimal places. So if you're tabulating votes, your vote, my vote, Representative Johnson's votes, well, that's 3 votes. This data is reported in 3-digit fractions. So how is that possible in an additive function? So the software and the code is what we would need, or a qualified forensics team of your choice would need to look at to determine what algorithms were in the USB drives that drive the machines. And the number pattern that we see is that they would pick 3 to 4 precincts. They would run the algorithm for an X amount of time till they got close to the precinct threshold so it wouldn't kick off the overvote situation, and then they would move it to another precinct. So this is a complex issue with injection. In Pennsylvania, we heard a gentleman who, again, signed an affidavit as a truck driver that he delivered a truckload of ballots to a vacant lot in Pennsylvania from New York, and his assumption was the ballots were just left there. There was no one there to sign his bill of lading, to give the bill of lading. So the hypothesis or the assumption is that was used as a staging area for people to go pick up pre-printed ballots to move into the system. For example, what we saw in some of the late absentee numbers in Michigan.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. With that, we'll move on. Thank you for your testimony today. We appreciate it. And now we're going to invite up one more person, Monica Palmer, who's a Wayne County canvasser, if I understand right. And then we'll let you testify